This is Professor G's Remedies, and boy, do I have a treat for you today. Today, I am going over identity. It's using marketing concepts to reveal a program's identity. So few times do I have the opportunity to combine uh, two things that I love in my life, and that is music, music education, and marketing. And we get to connect with that today. So let's get into it. I want you to think about this. Take about a minute. I want you to think about if you could take ownership of one word, what would it be? Basically, the concept these days is to take ownership of one word. If somebody thinks of you, they think of this one word. And when someone thinks of this one word, they think of you. And so, what one word would you like to take ownership that best describes you in how you go about your everyday life and what you want to be known for? So, take a moment, think about that, and we will continue on in about a minute. So, while you do that, I want to go over a little bit about myself and why I'm giving you this workshop on identity. So, first of all, I've been in this business since 1985, pretty close to 35 years. I've been in music, and I have continued with this line of work through different mediums, from the sales floor to the manufacturing floor to the concert stages, even played at the Budokan. So in Japan, in Tokyo, Japan. So basically, within the last 15 years or so, I've been servicing 9 different counties as a road representative or educational sales rep for different companies. I have experience in 3 different states in the retail and manufacturing realm of music industry, from sales floor, manufacturing floor, and stuff like that. I've been in Texas, Alabama, and California. I've been a military musician for approximately 10 years as a French horn player, served both mostly here in Texas at Fort Hood and then overseas in South Korea and Uijeonbu with the 2nd Infantry Division Band. I've also been in the private sector, like I've said. And then I have a pretty solid education in music education, business, and then, of course, I have an MBA. And I also put my money where my mouth is. I happen to teach this. A lot of these concepts come from marketing that I teach at the collegiate level, and I am putting a lot of stuff together for you today, from stuff like that, from experiences I have from being up and down this state in different states and knowing how music educators go about their everyday lives and their needs or frustrations. So I have a huge finger on the pulse of music educators and what it means to create an identity for your program. Now, why marketing? Real quick, okay, not too many people know this. A lot of people, when they think of marketing, they think of advertising, telemarketing, things like that. Well, marketing is way more than that. The primary purpose of marketing is to solve a problem. Somebody has a need, and there's got to be a product to meet that need. There's got to be some communication so you know about that product. It's got to have a reputation. It's got to be able to deliver on multiple levels. And that's what marketing actually seeks to do. And so, I think you guys are hopefully starting to connect how a music program can solve a lot of problems within a youngster's development, and we're going to get into that in a little bit. It creates value for all of the stakeholders, It communicates it effectively and in the right places, and we're going to go into depth on how it does that. It forms an identity, which is the main purpose of this whole workshop. It is timely, making sure it's released and launched, its communications and everything. It's got to be timely, and marketing it does that in a very effective way. And it reaches right down to the core of humanity and who we are. We make connections as consumers to brands, not necessarily because it meets every one of our needs, but it kind of fits right with our identity. We know brands like Apple and Starbucks. Those uh, those two brands are very strong. It fits well within a certain identity and how people perceive themselves through their ego, super ego, and their id, right? Okay, basic psychology things. And then also marketing also works on so many other levels in that identity. Okay, so, and let me get my pointer out so that you can follow along here. So, when we're talking about identity, what we're really talking about is brand equity. This is a marketing term that marketers use in order to manage customer experience primarily. How are they experiencing your brand or your identity? So, with programs, we're looking at developing first off an awareness. And this is done like in this pyramid, where it's kind of like Maslow's hierarchy of needs. It kind of goes off with the bottom section here where everybody's familiar, and then it continues upward and refining in meaning for the person. So identity is awareness. Are people aware of what you do, what your brand means? And then you're looking at a meaning where when they come in contact with your brand, is the imagery that you project balanced with its performance? Are you meeting expectations when people have an experience with your brand? When folks have an experience with your program, are they having, uh, are you meeting expectations? And then what develops there is the response, the feeling, the judgment, all of that type of things where that am I going to be using this more often? How deep am I going to get into this? And then eventually to the place of relationships where there is resonance, where there is a connection that is meaningful in the uniqueness so that it develops to the point where people really can't do without it. It's one and the same. And so I talk a lot with a lot of band directors, and I talked to a friend of mine who is a band director, and we both agree that when a band director, when a music teacher is really making an impact and they're uh, seeing some results, I think the pinnacle is when students are in a room or they're hanging out together and they play, he called them music quotes. They're playing that Gustav Holst line or they're playing that certain Broadway tune, that Bernstein tune, or something, some melodies back and forth, and they're discussing deeper meanings of the music that they are creating together. And that's what we're talking about in residence. Is it making that level of impact for your students? So let's get into the crux of this. We're going to break this down step by step. And when we're talking branding touch points, we're talking about your identity as a program. So the questions you really need to answer and what your main goal is in order to develop that brand equity in that pyramid that we just looked at is number one, is what you're doing unique? Are you providing something that is differentiated from other activities that students come in contact? Is what you're doing unique in particular for your program? Is it different than another school? Is it different than the other organizations and activities? Not just at the school, but within that student's life? Is it creating that uniqueness to the level where you're keeping it well defined? Is it identifiable? It's like, oh, yep, that's so and so's program. That's how they do things. That type of thing. Is it well defined and identifiable in that way? Is it impactful? Is it creating meaning with that student in their lives? Is it valuable? Now, real quick about value. Now, so when we're looking at brand equity, equity is that a little bit extra that you have. You save up money, and then you also make money on on um, on savings money. You have some kind of return on investment, and so that's what we're talking about. Equity. Are you adding upon the activity that you're doing? Does this go beyond just putting in the work? Are they getting something else out of that? So any additional thing, awareness, impact that a person gets from your program, that is what creates value. And when we're talking about that, the parents are also going to need to see that. What is the value to them? What are, let's say, the investment that they make, and are they getting a decent return on that investment? The time that they put in, the money that they put in, all of the little stress and activities, is it returning back to them some kind of reward? So that's very important. So when we're creating brand and creating your identity, is your identity creating value in that person's life? And is it becoming indispensable? Can they do without it? Can they do without this activity in life? Does it feel like they're missing something if they don't have their music fix? Okay, we're going to come back to these, and as we move forward, we're going to go through this kind of the step-by-step uh, method that we have in creating identity. Now, the first part of this is the situation analysis. Now, I have been doing marketing courses for the last 7, 8 years. I have been in the retail world and manufacturing world. I want to say for I want it almost 20 years now, and the culmination of my education, the extra time I've taken in reading other authors and other great marketers like Seth Godin, these Rohit Bhargava, these great thinkers in marketing, pulling together all of this information, I kind of come out with this. Now, if you know what a SWOT analysis, that is SWOT, that stands for strength, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. If you've ever done a SWOT analysis, this is going to look familiar. I've combined things from SWOT analysis, from environmental scanning, and something called Porter's 5 competitive forces. And later on, we're going to see another uh, type of strategy called blue ocean strategy, where we're going to put together all of this stuff. So so that you know, I'm not coming up with this stuff out of the blue. These actually come from some incredible resources, and I have combined them all, kind of watered them down, put them into terms and activities that make sense for the music educator. So the number one thing, okay, or not, I won't say number one thing, but the first thing you have to look at in order to analyze your surroundings is competencies. What are your competencies? I'm not talking about looking at anybody else or anything, just knowing what you have, right? Well, not just with yourself, but also your surroundings. So first thing in competencies, we talk about the wheelhouse. Yeah, I don't know if you ever heard that term, but it's your wheelhouse. It's what's your makeup? What instrument do you play? What other instruments do you play? What other type of activities do you combine in this? I talked to a really good friend of mine who's a band director, and all he wants to do is band. He doesn't want to do orchestra. He doesn't want to do choir or anything else. He wants to maintain in his emphasis and his wheelhouse is marching band, and that's what he really wants to gear towards, and that is fine. Knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing what your competencies are, beginning with your wheelhouse, can really help you identify your identity, to come up with your identity. The next thing is just available assets that you have. This is all of the stuff that you have within arm's reach. Your available capital, like real assets. What kind of instruments do you have? What does your library look like? What kind of stuff do you have for backup instruments, repairs? How good are your instruments? Is everything, is your accessories set up, mouthpieces set up? For choir, of course, it is having the right things. Like, do you have that piano, that digital piano? Do you have those that music that you have? Is all of that stuff ready and available? If not, do you have the funds? Where can you find the funds? How are what's your support? A lot of time your support plays a lot into what your funds are. What are your administrations willing to do? What is your plan? A lot of times selling this stuff comes down to having this confidence in your program and developing a strategy like this, where administration would be like, okay, I have a little bit extra money. Let me throw it your way. Just see what you can gather together to increase your available capital. Okay, so funds, grants, stuff like that, fundraisers, all of that stuff is considered available capital. What's your boosters? What are your volunteers look like? Parents are really willing to participate and buy in when the music educator is sold out. I've seen that over and over again, and I've seen booster support really increase, and it comes down to the confidence in the competencies of a program. So um, your competencies are very important in the situation analysis. Moving forward, target audience. We call this in marketing target market. There is a lot to target audience than meets the eye. I hear all the time from teachers the socioeconomic, and a lot of time that's the only determination, and they think that's what consists of their target market. That's all it consists of. That is not it. I want to say open your eyes to this, but let me go in deeper into depth of what consists of target audience, and knowing the difference between these specific segments of your target audience, and knowing all these attributes about these segments can change a a a weakness, can change a threat, can change something that you think is negative, and turn it into a very positive thing. So number one is economics. Everybody, so what are your uh, household incomes, your monthly household incomes look like? Not just that, but you also have to consider what's called dispendable income. This is the income that people have, that they have money to spend on, discretionary income, where they no longer it's the money left over after taxes and utilities and food and stuff like that. What's that money situation look like? And it varies from community to community. community. Sometimes you have the same annual household income uh, throughout California, but maybe it's more expensive to live in one place than another. Somebody's rent is more, therefore that means their discretionary uh, purchases are a lot less. So you do have to consider that. That is one of the things. Looking at your demographic. Now, demographics also includes education level. It isn't just what race you are and ethnicity. You're also looking at education level. You're also looking at with demographic, your age group. Sometimes certain parts of California, you have older parents rather than younger parents. You have that type of experience, okay? So being familiar with your demographic is important. Your location. Where are you? Are you in a rural area? Are you in an urban area? Those things can make a big difference. What size population are we looking at? What type of activities are they doing to make money? That stuff is pretty important, knowing those things. Okay? Now this is a big differentiation that can make a huge switch for you, and a lot of folks don't think about this, and every single time I mention it, a light bulb goes on. And let me give you a light bulb moment. Okay? So when we're looking at lifestyle, you can have certain ethnicities and all this stuff, and a lot of times those play into lifestyles, but you can have a lifestyle to where people are just young and active. So a lot of these things play together. Here is one for you. It's pretty immense. It's a big deal. I don't know of any culture on this planet, and I have been to other countries, I have been throughout the United States, and I've been up and down this state intimately. And I will tell you this beyond a shadow of a doubt, and I think you will agree. There is no other culture on the face of this planet that I know of that loves music more than the Hispanic culture. Let that sink in for a second. Think about it. Think about it. I can't think I can't think of another culture that loves music more. I grew up with the father who is Mexican. He was the one in the morning singing as he prepared his breakfast every single day. He sang top 40 songs. He didn't sing Mexican traditional Hispanic music. He was the second generation. He sang 50s and 60s music, and he was a great singer. And he sang while he worked, he sang all the time. That's important to know when we're addressing a target audience and we're addressing parents. A lot of times I hear music educators, teachers, administrators think that based upon these other indicators, they miss this indicator. They think they don't have the money. This is not the demographic that will assimilate to our musical culture. So when we talked about the equity thing, when we talked about putting together value, they don't have that value in they don't see that value in having their children participate in music. That is not true. I guarantee that the Hispanic culture will shell out $350 for a mariachi uniform. They will. They will pay money for that. They will pull together resources for those things because they know the value of it. They know the value of connecting their culture with music. They know all of that. So this is going to turn you on your ear on this. This is going to flip the channel for you when we become creative in coming up with opportunities in a second. Here we go. Other things is that social aspect is how are people raised, or how uh, what are their social acceptances, what are taboos, things like that. Knowing those things about your target audience does change the needle into your favor for a buy-in. Okay, so let's talk about some of these opportunities when we're looking at the situation analysis. Now, I don't mean to totally focus on Hispanic culture because there's other cultures I think we that needs to take a look at and everything, but those give me the best examples. That's the ones that I run in contact with, come in contact with most of the time. So I'm using that as examples. Okay, so I don't want you to think that this is only about the Hispanic culture getting working out an identity toward that end. I'm just using that as an example. Okay, so moving forward, opportunities are what you're going to start in developing your identity, looking for those opportunities. So you have an opportunity to make uh, your program unique. That is a key point in creating a strong identity, is the uniqueness and the opportunities you have to create uniqueness. Importance. People dedicate themselves if they think something is important. Technology. Technology can be a huge opportunity when you're using it correctly and using it in different ways and connecting with your target audience. And regulatory opportunities. Here in the state of California, we have what's called the Williams Act that says if a student wants to, this pretty much watered down, if a student wants to participate in a school activity, the school needs to provide it for. So you have great opportunities there. Okay. And then bringing in the target audience as well to create the opportunities. Now, you can't go about your situation without knowing what you're up against. You need to know what you're up against. The available substitutes. Available substitutes come across as in cost. Sometimes parents, when they make decisions, they may have to make a decision that, hey, either my kid, depending upon the parent's discretionary income, may have to choose between band or sports because of how much it costs them. Okay, and how much time is dedicated to it. Right? We all know these things. These can become a hot topic and a hotbed of issues when you're talking music programs. How much dedication? The point is this: is to create such a uniqueness, right, and importance so that the value that is created outweighs the cost of a substitute. Okay. What kind of skill level, what type of things can you attain to? Some things doesn't take much skill level at all, and those can become easy substitutes when we're talking about something taking up time from uh, music programs. And level of commitment. How much commitment are we looking at in these substitutes versus the level of commitment it takes for the music program? And then lastly is the popularity. How popular uh, is the music program? How popular are some of the people who are in it? What kind of friendships can be developed? A lot of people just do band because their friends are in it. That's true. That's true. Some people do sports because their friends are in it, right? So that can play big, uh, a big thing in that decision making and whether to be committed to the music program or to sports or to anything else. Okay. Continuing on here. So we're going to take the situation analysis and we're going to make a list in those categories based upon those things. You're going to split up these segments of it. Then they're going to try to work this in, and this comes from the blue ocean strategy. Okay, so there are people who are that are considered your market, or this is your program. These are the people participating in your program. Okay, but there are three other bubbles outside of those sphere of influences. The first tier, so this is your market. The first tier are just outside of your market. They're just outside. This is this group of people. Imagine there being dots here representing people. These are soon to be. These are people are who are teeter on the fence. They've considered being part of a music program, but they're not. So you can kind of design an identity to where they're going to feel comfortable and connect their lives and their identity with your program. They could do that. They've thought about it. It just takes a real strong, well branded program, and then they're in. Okay. Now this second tier are people who have looked at joining band or joining choir or jazz band or whatever, drumline, and they said that's just silly. That's not cool. That's not for me. Okay, but you want to create something to where you shorten this tier down. Okay, what do you need to do? What do you need to create in order to persuade these people to come into your market? And then the third tier is the unexplored. These folks don't even really know you exist, right? Never really thought about it or whatever. So what you're doing by taking a look at the situation analysis and looking uh, at these three tiers is to create an identity that brings in people who have never even thought about doing participating in fine arts. So moving forward, this is your main canvas here. Is you're going to pull together 4 main actions in order to create an identity. So based upon your situation analysis and what you filled in those 4 squares, what you put in for opportunities, what you put in for your competencies, what are you make a list of all your target audience and considering those main segments, right? And taking a look at your available substitutes. So you look at that, you make a list into those categories, and you got a good idea of your situation. Now you need to figure out what about your program you need to eliminate, get rid of. Those are hard decisions. You need to figure out what you need to raise, kind of increase, spend more time in to improve. Those are good things. We need to keep that. We need to improve it. You need to take a look at what to reduce. Now, these are things you can keep around, right? You have it here just in case, right? You can reduce it, and then you need to create. What do you need to create? So you have some things that are good within the program. You can raise them, strengthen them, right? You can strengthen them by eliminating some things. So let's go over some of these things that you want to fill. You want to fill these blocks full of great ideas on how to create a brand identity or your program's identity this way. Okay. First thing, you want to eliminate no. You want to be able to overcome any objection. Basically, that's one of those things. Uh, you want to create a welcoming environment, right? So you want to eliminate no and doubt. I want to say mostly in you, mostly in the teacher. Confidence is a big thing. Having doubt comes through like clear as day to anybody. If you have doubt in something, doubt if something's going to work or not, it then it's not going to. So anything that you have that you're looking at that you're doubting, right? You get rid of it. You got to get rid of it, right? It's either if you're doubting it, right? Then you eliminate that doubt by raising it, right? Or just eliminating it. Okay? So the next thing is negative experiences. Got to take a look. What are the negative experiences? It could be a hard look even at yourself. Why, here's a negative experience. What do I need to raise, eliminate, or reduce in order to get rid of these negative experiences? When we're talking about raising things, we need to look at ways to raise the level of importance. And raising level of importance doesn't come by negative experiences. Okay? By increasing level of importance, making certain benchmarks, setting certain goals, raising those expectations, those type of things, making things. This is really cool. I got a band director friend in a very rural community, and I've seen him do this with students. I go, this is brilliant. A lot of times, he has a lot of students in this doubt place, right? And he take takes care of that doubt. Like, oh, I don't want to play. I don't think I can play it, right? Of course, the teacher goes, no, I know you can play it. It's not like I have faith in you or whatever. I know you can do it. I wouldn't have given the part to you, right? You're doubting me, my ability to assess your ability. I don't think so, right? I need you to do this. Raising that level of importance, making sure I'm counting on you to do this, that type of thing where it doesn't add necessarily stress, but adds to the teamwork. And like every person is an important part of this ensemble, raising those level of importance. Okay, inclusivity, keeping, making sure everybody feels welcome. Everybody needs to feel welcome and a part of this team. Make sure that you build character. You raise these things. Anything you can list in here and raising these soft skills with these students, right, will increase the value of your program and to where it's increased the importance of the experience for the students so that your program becomes indispensable. They need this program because it's character building for them. It makes them a better person. Okay? You need to reduce variances, being very consistent, right? Anything that you can't foresee everything. But when there's too much variances, you know what happens with kids, right? You pretty much have a zoo on your hands, right? So eliminating, even reducing and eliminating as much variances as possible. Like I say, you can't see everything that can happen, but make sure you take care of that. Okay, interruptions, making sure that this time is important to you, and it's so important that you're not going to take away from your students' time. Okay, so eliminating interruptions is very important. Wasted time, being prepared, making sure you're prepared for each lesson, taking care of each lesson, everything shows that it's very important to them. Okay, so anything like this in that you're going to want to reduce, right, in order to create a strong identity for your students. Very important. Create uniqueness, unique stuff that you may do, keeping something a tradition, making sure it's an annual thing that you do or something that you do before and after class or when class starts or when class ends, something that creates it unique for that group. That's very important. Timeless, making your program feel timeless is huge, so that maybe 20 years down the road you may have folks that can reminisce, and the experiences that people had 20 years ago is the same type of experience that they have today. So making your program timeless and creating that is super important. So going back, when we're talking about those four square, um, the eliminate, reduce, create, and raise grid, your framework, make sure that when you fill those items into those four sections that you need to create an identity, you make sure you measure it against these main touch points. We go back to them. Is it unique? Is it well defined? Are you making an impact? Is it adding value for all the stakeholders? Is it indispensable? Can they do without your program? Okay. So if you have any questions, absolutely, I want to hear them. So I want to know this though. Have you thought of a word that would best describe it, or that you could take ownership of in order to create your identity? Even after this workshop, will you be able to go and think, is it measuring up to that word? Is that word creating value? Is this word being indispensable in these people's lives? Okay. You guys can contact me anytime. Have any questions? Do not hesitate to reach out. Again, I got a lot of this stuff, and I will put up on the screen all of the books that are great materials to go to. Daniel Pink is another one for you, where I get that one word question. It's actually in a book that Daniel Pink wrote called To Sell is Human. And that is a great, great book for people who are outside the marketing industry to get a good idea of how marketing plays in everyday life. I thank you very much for attending, and you guys have yourself an awesome day.